Well, hello and welcome to Leadership Pathway. I'm Dave Miller. I'm really thrilled to introduce you to our guest talking about his leadership journey to this point. Desmond Jones, introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Desmond Jones. I'm the youth pastor over at City Point Church in Allen, Texas, and 26 years old, a single guy out here living the life out in Texas from Colorado, born and raised. So yeah,
Where at in Colorado were you born and raised?
I was born in Western Colorado. I was born in a city called Grand Junction,
That's
town
right.
south of there called Delta.
That's cool. Go back to, I love talking to people who, you're like a veteran at this point. Are you a leadership veteran?
I don't know about that. I'm still learning new things every day. It feels like
Oh
I
yeah.
feel like just this week I've been learning stuff about my leadership style that I need to grow in. So
That probably will never finish. It will
yeah.
never stop.
I wish it did, but
Yeah.
yeah, I know that to be true.
Um, Go back to where it started. When did you first think about going into ministry? Were you a young kid or was this later in life or how did this happen?
Yeah, I actually didn't go to church. I was in high school, and I was a pretty messed up kid, honestly, when I grew up. And then, um, yeah, I finally met Jesus by meeting this friend in school, and he invited me to a Bible study. Fell in love with it. Long story short, gave my life to Jesus at youth group and as
Hmm.
a freshman in high school, and then uh, didn't go to youth camp that year. But the next year, my sophomore year of high school, went to youth camp, and I just remember so vividly this moment of being at the altar, and I just looked around, and I just knew in my heart that I was going to be a pastor, and I knew that ministry was the direction I wanted to go. Before that, I thought I was going to be a computer scientist. Like I loved computers, and I was like, I'm going to do that, and then there was just this moment at the altar where I was like, oh, it's ministry. And I surrendered my life to that. And every moment forward from there was just, I knew I wanted to do ministry. And
How about
so
that? Do you recall the first Bible study that you walked into?
the first Bible study that I walked into,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was technically a FCA event. And so my friend came up to me in the computer lab at school and was like, hey, why don't you join me for this? And showed up, and I don't even remember what we read. I don't remember any of that stuff. I just remember that I met the youth pastor's name was Darby, and we played some games. He read some scripture, and we prayed together, and that was a moment that changed my life. I tell my buddy that probably once a year, where I was like, dude, that changed my life. So
That's cool. You said you were a pretty messed up kid. Did you know something was not right? Were you sensing? Were you looking for something? Or did this just come out of left
yeah, I
field?
think and when I was a middle schooler, I dealt with a lot of depression. That was kind of my big thing that I was
Okay.
struggling with, and couple moments that got pretty bad mentally for me, and
Mm,
we don't have to go in detail on that, but
right.
I that's where I was into high school as a freshman. I was just depressed, as depressed can be,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I was just searching for whatever could bring me hope and whatever could take me out of that, and that's church became that. Church
Mm,
before I even accepted Jesus as my savior, I just went to church because I was just like, this is a place I want to be. It's a safe place for me. It's a place where I can have fun, but also like there's something different about it. And that's what kept me going back, was it was just a home for me.
mm.
So that happened for a few months of me just going there because it was better than me being home. And eventually a couple months later is when it was an altar moment where I just
Mm.
remember I was like, I'm going to give my life to Jesus.
That's cool. Okay. You finished high school in
Yeah.
uh in Colorado?
Yeah. So I graduated in little town of Delta, Colorado. We had a class of 126 in small little school. And immediately after graduating high school, I went out to the church camp where I accepted my call to ministry, and worked out there for 2 years. I just was an intern full time. So I did the winter camps, I did the summer camps, all the things, maintenance, all that stuff. And I worked there for 2 years, and it was a great time. I was young. I made a lot of mistakes. I was just dumb. And I look back at that time, I'm like, man, I'm glad I'm not there anymore. I think that it's a melting pot of, you're a single guy, there's intern girls, there's all this stuff, and you spend way too many hours with all those people, and it becomes a
Yes.
melting pot. So it,
Dude, I
it
did
was
it one summer. I worked a crew one summer at a Christian camp. That was I mean, I don't know. I don't think it was legal, but I mean, it was early till late
Yeah.
every day.
That's how summer
Kitchen
was for us.
maintenance. Yeah.
It was like 5:30 a.m. to like 10 o'clock or later at
Yeah.
night, depending on how long people were out. And I loved it though. I was built for that, but at the same time I got out of it and I was like, I don't think I could do that again, So it was formative for me there was a lot of moments that there's seasons where we were slower in ministry
Mhm.
side and more developmental in us as leaders and as followers of Christ, and I think that developed me a lot.
Yeah.
The guy that I think of, his name's Glenn. Like,
Mm.
man, there was this one moment where I was just being a dumb young buck, wet behind the ears kid, and he had to call me out on it. I remember taking that challenge and it changed me. Like I just became a different person because I saw the challenge I put before me, and he just called me out on my crap, and I didn't realize how much I needed that until someone did it, and that's why I look back at that time. I'm like, it was so worth it to do that camp because I don't think that I learned there wasn't much like youth ministry practical stuff in my calling that I learned. It was
Right.
just more like how to be an adult, how
Yeah.
to lead and all that. And so,
Well, the
yeah,
thing is, when you work 5:30 till late,
yeah,
6 or 7 days, you know what a hard day is.
yeah,
It certainly taught me that.
right.
Um, okay, 2 years at camp. Then what?
Yeah. So I remember, funny story. I remember this moment where I've noticed recently that dreams is where the Lord speaks to me sometimes, which is wild to me. But I remember I was sleeping and I had the most wild dream. And I woke up the next day and I just felt like something is happening, something is going to change. And like, I just felt like, is this a transition? Am I going to stay at the camp? What, like, it was all of a
Yeah.
sudden just stirring in my heart. And then randomly, it's weird, man. Like, randomly my old youth pastor, who at that time was now a missionary overseas in the Middle East, came back and he approached me first thing when he came back, and he's like, hey, I feel like God's calling me to start this church. Why don't you come and join me as my youth pastor? And I was like, let me pray about it, and I remember praying about it that night, and it was like that confirmation of what I was feeling in my heart, where it's just like I could tell change was coming, and then there it was, and it was just so peaceful about it. And so I remember I ended my not my my internship there, and it was like right at the deadline of that year anyways. It was perfect. And so ended up moving out to Durango, Colorado, helping start this church, and I was there for 2 years as well. And so these little 2 year stints where I was 2 years as the intern and then 2 years at um, this church plant, and it was great. The church plant was interesting. Like, that was my first challenge in ministry, where it was just like you're starting it from the ground up, and it was just me and this other family, and I was a single guy. Like, there was just a lot there, and moving to a new town, first time ever, and
And you're
there was a lot of
20. You're
challenges.
20
Yeah,
at this point?
yeah. I think I was 19 when I moved out there, and then when I moved away from Durango, I was 21, I think.
Wow.
And so, yeah, and it was right. It was wild. We literally planned the church plant, pushed the date back a little bit, and then boom, started the church. Boom, COVID, and
Yeah.
so it's like middle of COVID, started the church, and there was just a lot that happened within there, and that one ended kind of interesting. The church plant, I was asked to step away, and it was really a lesson for me because the reasoning was me not honoring what was asked of me from
Huh?
my leader, and it was just like stuff that was very valid. I left it and I was
Huh.
like, oh man, I wish I would have changed that. I wish I would have heard that. I
In the
wish I
moment when you were self-aware enough to have that thought, or did that come later
No, I
looking
think it
back?
came after. Yeah, I think
Okay.
after some reflection and because initially I was mad and I was hurt,
Yeah.
and I felt the emotions of it, and ended up moving back home for a little while and serving at
Okay.
my local home church, and like it was through that I was just like I was like, man, I am like realizing how much I need like something more to grow in
Huh.
ministry, and that's funny story. That's how it was Sean at the time with Leadership Pathway,
Yeah.
but there was this moment back home where I was working at this tractor supply place where I was helping them develop like a website thing, and I was just working one day and I was just like, you know what, like maybe this isn't like, maybe I need to jump back into ministry. Maybe I not
Huh.
need to not give up on this, and started looking at Slingshot, and then immediately got a call from Sean. I remember walking
right.
out into the field of this tractor place and like taking this call with Sean. He's like, "So what are you thinking?" And I was like,
I
"I
love
don't
it.
know, man, but
I
I
love it.
just know that I'm not done with ministry, you
You know,
know."
a
And
lot of people at age 20 or whatever it was, 20, when they ask you to step away,
yeah, it was 21, I think.
a lot of people would have been done at that point.
Yeah.
In fact, and I don't know what the statistics are, but there's a lot of people that do that 1 to 2 year thing. It doesn't end well. Either they quit or are asked to leave. And where are they? They go on, they work at the Tractor Supply or they do whatever. So it's interesting that you had enough something. What do you pin that to? To reach out and think, let me take another whack at this.
I think it was confidence in knowing what I was called to. You know, like
Calling.
yeah, I think in all those seasons, even in the hurtful moments, I think
Uh-huh.
there was a part of me deep down that was like, this isn't something to give up on at all,
Mm.
you know. And I think I needed to lick my wounds a little bit. That's why I went back
Yeah.
home, and I was
Yeah.
just like, oh, that sucked, you know. And even when I went home, I think there was a season of my life, and it was about 20. This is gonna be vulnerable, but
Yeah.
there's a season of my life when I was 20, 21. Church plant happened. I was not very healthy there, ended, and
Yeah.
then I went back home, and like I just was like hurt and frustrated, and
Sure.
like that kind of caused tensions with leadership of my church back home too. And like
Okay.
there's just a lot of like there was this pattern I was seeing, you know. And I didn't see it until way later, like
Huh.
years years into my residency with Eastern Hills, that I was like, oh, like this makes so much more sense why this was this way, you know. And what's wild though is like in all of that, I knew that there was a calling that I was never gonna
How about that?
sacrifice. It was just like the timing, you know. And when even when Sean reached out to me, I was just like, yeah, like there's something that I don't want to miss in this. And there was an
Mm.
excitement about a restart a little bit in ministry, you know. And
Had you
so
ever had the thought, maybe I'll just a completely different path? I mean, Tractor Supply, you were just working to eat or whatever.
yeah,
But I mean, like, did you ever think, okay, maybe I should go be a computer scientist? I'm going to go to school. Did you ever have those
I did.
wild
Yeah.
change of direction idea?
It's funny. I've just never thought that way. I
Huh.
since the moment at camp when I was a sophomore in high school, I've not thought that way. And I don't know why. Like if I'm being honest, there's been a lot of people in my life that have tried to push me a direction that's away from ministry. And I haven't thought that. Even after the church plant, there was not a moment of like, I'm not gonna do ministry. It was more of when, you know, like
Mm.
should I lick my wounds? Should I go back and just be poured into for a little while, or should I jump back into ministry? And there was a moment when I was back home where I was just like, you know, I think I need to stop, you know, and step out of ministry for a little while. That doesn't mean it's over, because I know ministry is what's on my heart. But
Mm.
and it was weird because I was confident in that decision, you know, where I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm just gonna do this, you know, for a
Yeah.
little while, and when it happens, it happens. And then randomly, it was like there was just a day. It's weird. I get these like feelings sometimes where I'm like, there was just this day where I was just looking at opportunities of
Yeah.
ministry, and I decided to fill out the application thing for Slingshot, and that's when Sean
Uh,
reached out, and it happened so fast after that. It was like, man, it's like, what church you want to go to? And I was like, well, this one looks interesting. And then it was like boom, 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 and it was like every door opened. Like it was this moment of like, okay, Lord, like if this is what's next, I'll take it, you know. And I took it as like a geographical change, but also like a just a reset of ministry
sure.
for me. Where I was
Sure.
like the thing that really sold to me about residency was the the opportunity, even though I knew how to do ministry, to go under someone and to be like, hey, I don't know this though. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I don't want to ever be the guy that's like, hey, I know how to do this, so this isn't valuable. In the residency changed my life, you know, like I go ahead.
Was that 2022? What year would that have been?
I think I moved out on January 1 of 2022. That's when I moved to
2022.
Denver. Yeah. So
Eastern Hills on the far east side.
yeah, so it was a quick turnaround because church plant, I left there in August of
Okay.
21. And then I was back home for a while. I was serving as kind of the interim youth guy there for a little while. And it was just, again, it was just messy. It probably wasn't the wisest thing for me to do in that season. And
Hmm.
so Um, then it was weird. Like I started talking to Sean in November, and then December I was locked in, got through Christmas, and then I moved out there. So it
So
was
for
fast. Yeah.
so for you, this idea of calling is strong. For
Yeah.
others, it isn't. So for some of us, it isn't as strong. But you go back to that night at camp.
Yeah. You know what's funny is and we can talk about this more when we get there, but I feel like the feeling of calling has been stronger feeling now in my role than I was even when I was a resident, where I was like, I think in that season of being the resident, I was like, yeah, I'm doing this because I know that I love ministry. That's where my heart is. And I want to learn how to do ministry well, you know? And even when I was at the Avenue, it was kind of like that was the church after the residency was the Avenue. And I was like, I loved my job. It was an awesome job, but it was like there's a part of me that wasn't feeling like I was stepping truly within what my my calling was, you know.
Mm,
It's weird
mm,
because being at City Point, I've had these weird experiences over and over again where there's been people in our church and even people in our town that I've been working with, other youth pastors that are like noticing that, and they're
mm.
starting to call that out and say, I see this in you. And I'm like, oh, okay, you know, because I'm like, I there's been a lot of moments in my life where I was really discouraged, you know, where I was like, it's kind of weird balance where I was like, it I know I'm called to ministry, but am I good enough for ministry? You
Yeah,
know?
sure.
And like after the church plan, I thought that I was like, am I good enough to do that? I know that I'm
Right,
called to that, but like,
right.
am I good enough? And even in the residency, there was a couple moments in my residency where I was like, man, am I? You know,
Yeah,
am I the right person for
sure.
this? And it's weird because the only thing that's kept me in there is knowing that I'm where God has put me, you
Mm.
know, and trusting that. Like that's all I lean on, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
in the wisdom of people that I trust, you know, and yeah. So
What has been the biggest learning, do you think, this of the City Point piece where you are now? Like did not realize until here that, how would you finish that?
yeah, I think stepping into a role where I hold the reins to the ministry,
Mm-hmm.
it's taught me a lot about what's most important, what's not most important.
Okay.
I, when I was even the middle school pastor at my last place,
Mm-hmm.
I had a net that was under me that
Okay.
was protecting me with the people that were above me. You know what I'm saying? And that's how
Yeah.
residency was too. Like
Yeah.
I could run with ideas and I could run rampant with ideas and I'm
Yeah.
protected. You know, like I know that I have something to fall on. Now the weight of it is more important. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's showing me and teaching me one, how important it is to communicate as well as I can, how important it is to lead the best way I can lead, and constantly be willing to change and adapt and learn. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's been my biggest challenge in this role is like there's a lot that I think I've learned over my residency and even working at the Avenue that like how to communicate
Mm-hmm.
well,
Mm-hmm.
how to build systems. But
Mm-hmm.
then when I'm like, oh, it's time to actually build these things in a new place, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is gonna be time, you know.
Yeah.
And for me, the biggest thing is consistency. That's like for me, it's easy to be like, oh, this may not be working. Let's change this. But
Mm.
I'm learning that it's like, no, as the pastor of this, I have to be consistent, you know, and I have to be consistent with my students, and I have to show up every week, and I have to keep driving in that mission, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's unique to this role. Like
Right.
before, it's been like managing someone else's vision. For
Yep.
me now, it's like this is the vision. Now let's put people around that vision, you
Yeah.
know. So
Sure.
there's a wider scope that I've learned mentally of understanding how to best steward that, if that makes sense.
You didn't do any sort of formal school, did you?
I actually kind of did. I did 2 years at SAGU, and then I did
Okay.
this pathway, which was like a theological studies with the
Oh,
Assemblies of God. And so
okay.
I
Was
did,
that during the camp season? When was that?
yeah. So I was studying both of those during the camp season, but
Okay.
the pathway was like an expedited version for credentialing with the AG, and then
Okay.
that kind of was interesting. That's a story for another day. But I did my studies with the pathway to get my theology stuff. So
Okay. Do
yeah,
you think you'll come back to education, more formal education in the future?
I've
What do you
thought
think?
about it. I almost did at the Avenue. They were offering an incentive for me to like study more. I
Okay.
think college, there is something really valuable about it to me. One, about finishing something,
Sure. Yeah.
following through with it, but also there's a part of me that's like, man, I want to learn more about that. I do hunger to learn. I
Right.
think for me right now, it's just kind of like when is it going to
Yeah.
financially make sense for me? When is it going to time wise make sense for me? Because in
Yeah.
this role, there's a large amount of my time consumed right now.
Sure.
My
I mean, we
prayer.
get asked this a lot by parents and by 19-year-olds. What should I do? Should I, and there's 100 paths out there that,
Yeah,
and it's a tough one to recommend on just because of the expense and
yeah,
all those things, but the number of, I think sometimes the peer pressure for parents when other kids in the youth group are flying to Grand Canyon or Liberty or Wheaton,
yeah.
and your kid's not going to do those things. I was just in this conversation 2 nights ago with a couple. Their daughter wants to be in ministry. What do you recommend? And I was like,
Yeah.
do you feel versus the other you meet a youth pastor in town and they're a fill in the blank, a whatever grad, Dallas Baptist or whatever, wherever these people go, right? How does it affect you at all? Not having done that formal, go to the classroom, live in the dorm in the apartment, take
I
on all the
actually,
debt.
this is going to sound weird. I feel better off sometimes. I don't mean that in a prideful way. I
No,
mean
no,
that
I
in a way,
would like to hear what you mean. Yeah.
like I think I've learned so much experience through being in ministry that's so much more valuable than the 4-year paper. You know what I'm saying? And what I'm seeing more is like I think college is really valuable. I think there's a lot of classes that it's like it's a lot of money, and what when I invested my time in the residency, it gave. In fact, I know this because when I got hired on at the Avenue, which is a big church, big student ministry, it was 500-600 kids. They told me that the number one selling point for them hiring me was my experience, and that was something that I got through residency. And the value I see in both sides is a lot. Like when I'm writing messages, it was valuable that I did do the theology studies I did.
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
it is important, especially if you're going to be a pastor. But
Hmm.
I think more important is you getting that experience in ministry
Hmm.
and what I'm seeing. I've been spending a lot of time with youth pastors in this area, and there's two types of people I've noticed. There's the people that have been in a long time that are start like that realize the value in working together, the value in um, the practical sides of ministry. And then there's the new youth pastors that are like, I'm out of Bible college. And it's like,
Right.
well, how much experience do you have?
Right.
Because this is more than just knowing the right words,
Yeah.
and me being I there's two sides. I hate that I've been multiple churches. I wish that I could have been
Hmm.
consistent in one church for a
Right.
decade,
Right.
but that wasn't my story.
Yeah.
But I think through those things, one thing that we've been doing here in Allen is I just helped start this thing called Unite, which is a bunch of churches working together and doing a unified events throughout the year.
Right on.
And that's been powerful. And I don't think that every youth pastor knows the value in or
Mm.
knows how to start something like that
Right.
because they aren't in that,
Right.
like they're just kind of in their church's thing.
Yeah.
And the perspective I'm coming from is one of seeing many different areas, how they worked,
Right.
different towns, different
Right.
communities, and also seeing how ministries that I've worked in have ran and been like,
Hmm.
man, I wish, or my heart is like, what if we did this,
Yeah. Yeah.
And now that I have the reins for it, I'm like, man, our ministry is gonna be doing this,
Yeah. Right on.
this is valuable. And I think that it's only learned through experience. Like
Yeah.
that's not something that Bible college teaches you, you know,
Yeah.
and
I mean, you're 26 and you've been in ministry
7 years.
7 years.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
I mean,
I
like
think some
move,
of
not
that.
just your home. And the thing is, sometimes, I mean, everyone's journey is different, right?
Yeah.
Which is why we didn't mean to call it leadership pathway, but I'm so glad we did because the pathways are as unique as the thumbprints of the people. And so you meet someone and their path was they went to work at their home church and they've been there for 7 years. That's very different than moving across states in the country and walking in with the confidence to reinvent yourself at a new organization. And that's
Mm.
what you've had to do. So I I see what you're saying there. I think the experiences of those things are going to catapult you forward and you learn context. You learn student ministry in this church. It's still students, but very different than this other place you've been.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Mm. It's good.
What were the things in the residency? What showed up? What showed up? And you're like, okay, I think, it might have been late in that second year, even. Doesn't matter, big or small. What showed up that you're like, okay, I think I understand what they're trying to say to me at this point.
You saying in the residency? What do you
Yeah,
mean?
during those Eastern Hills years.
Yeah. I I used to say this a lot. I've kind of cut this out of my vocabulary because I said it too much, but like always being teachable has been the biggest thing for me, you know, and this is more of a personal thing that I got from Eastern Hills, but I think this fits within the vision of what leadership pathway is. But um I didn't realize how much of a mess I was until someone told me at Eastern Hills that was close to me. And the church, like, and this is why I'll always vouch for residency because the church saw that I had a need in my life. And for me, that need was counseling. And and this was close to this is probably about halfway through my second year that someone in our church that was in our leadership was like, you need to get counseling. We're going to pay for this. We're going to help you with this. And I didn't pay a dime out of my pocket to get
How about
counseling.
that?
And I did a counseling intensive. I did weekly counseling for
Yeah.
about half the year.
Yeah.
I did monthly counseling for about however long I was there, you
Yeah.
know, and that changed my life. I'm not the same person because of that. And I think that changed my perspective on ministry too.
Yeah.
I think there was a part of me that went in there wanting a reset, and the the fact that our church loved the residents enough that they were willing to invest that into them
Yep.
changed my life,
Yeah.
you know. And
Des, this is why we do 2 years, man. And so many places do 1 or even just 10 months.
yeah,
And we know the first couple of months are honeymoons, and the last couple of months you're interviewing for the next. So, really, this short window of time, but over and over, it feels like the deeper work because it
yeah,
takes a while to trust that person. You got to have a lot of time before someone's going to say to you, you might need counseling. And maybe
yeah,
they've said it for months and they're just now pushing hard enough and you're starting to listen, right? That stuff happens in the second year.
mm, yeah,
And that we talk about the emotional side of these things, like the ingredients that go in to forming a leader. It's not just stage chops and being organized.
right,
you know, there's emotional and mental health support and all sorts of things that go into how do we develop someone as a whole person,
mm,
not just this executor of a ministry, but how do we care more for them than what we need from them? It
mm,
takes a while to get to that conversation.
yeah,
I'm not going to listen to someone at day 90. Even now, I wouldn't do,
yeah,
let alone when I was a 20-year-old intern. I just don't know how you get to that conversation, but it
mm,
happens in the second year.
mm,
So kudos to them. And kudos for
yeah.
you for being coachable in the moment to go with it.
It was hard, believe me. I
Sure.
remember.
No, right. I
Yeah,
think I
like
remember some of that. I wasn't in the middle of it, but I remember some of that.
yeah, for sure.
Des, if you think about what goes into being a student pastor, preaching and teaching,
Yeah,
being organized, administrator, pastor, one-on-one, um, being a recruiter and a team builder. What do you love? What do you love about being in student ministry? And which of those skills do you draw on the most and you really enjoy? And which one is still the growth edge for you?
I'll go growth first. Negative always first.
Yeah.
Communicating to my teams is something I'm growing in, and I'm feeling that challenge on myself to do better at, because how I think in my brain is like, here's a lot of ideas. I'm bouncing these around all the time. This is the vision. These are the ideas I want to do. And then it's like people will be like, whoa, okay, I guess we're doing this now. And I'm like I'm learning how to get so far ahead on it that I'm like, hey, you've known about this. Now we're here.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
so that's been my biggest growth opportunity. I think my favorite thing in student ministry of all time, and I preach this down the throats of my leaders, is showing up to students in students' lives in unexpected ways. That's
Yeah.
that's the way we phrase it. Is, man, I think whatever, you can preach an amazing message, you can have amazing small groups, you can have an awesome experience all around, but if you're not showing up in your students' lives, then I don't know how much you can win.
Yeah.
And that's what I love. My favorite thing ever is going to a sports game and cheering my students on, and then seeing that light up in their face when they see you,
Yeah.
where it's like, you're here, and it's
Yeah.
like, that's what it's about, because that shows life impact,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's my favorite thing of all time. That's why I do what I do,
Sure.
because if you're winning there, then you're going to see the life change.
What are you hopeful for with Gen Z and Alpha? We're already talking about Alpha. That's in what,
Yeah.
sixth grade or something. But what are you most hopeful for when you think of these age groups that you see showing up at church?
You know what I'm seeing in our ministry right now, and we have more Gen Z right now in our ministry than Alpha. Most of the middle schoolers are Alpha, obviously, but um, is they're so like willing to be honest. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're authentic above everything else, even if it hurts. Like, I recently had a student that was like, said something very honest about me that I was like, ooh, that kind of hurt. But I was like, oh, I'm glad you are willing to say that to me. And that's how I feel. Like, I just feel like our students are hungry for truth more than anything right now, that they're authentic above everything else. And that's what you need.
Yeah,
and
man.
and what we have to do as the leaders is lean into that. Like, don't
Yeah.
be afraid of it, lean into
Yeah.
it. And I'm seeing half of our youth ministries in this town are way willing to lean into that, and they're seeing so much success. And
Yeah.
there's others that are stuck in the past.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
stuck in the past are going to struggle, and it's changed so much.
Are you experiencing some people, what is it? Is it a revival or a spiritual awakening? What is it? Are you seeing that in this age group where you guys are?
Yeah, yeah, I stepped into a town that was experiencing something in the youth and Gen Z before I ever stepped foot on
Yeah.
at our church. I think it's changing now.
Hmm.
There was this moment last year where they had this thing called All In, fully student led. The students wanted the idea, they started it, and they had, by the end, they had about 1,000 students showing up to their things.
Wow.
That was just like a service at the school. It was
Wow.
powerful
Wow.
stuff. I wasn't part of it, but this year it's like different. I'm starting to see the churches uniting together.
Hmm.
That one was very like, the churches were like behind the scenes, like, we're supporting you.
Right.
But one thing I'm noticing is that our churches are saying, we need to be a part of this. We
Hmm.
need to step up and step into this, because like, the students can be hungering for this, and they're on fire for it, and they're ready to be activated. But if we're not activating them, we're just kind of putting stagnancy to something that wants to be put in motion.
Sure.
And
Sure.
it's like fighting something. And
Sure.
so I think this next season in our ministry, when it comes to revival, I'm being a little bit more. When I first got here, I was like, revival's happening. But I'm trying to be more careful about the word revival, because
Yeah.
I think most people, when they hear revival, it's like big numbers, big crowds. And do I think that's a part of it? Yeah, like, that'll happen through it. But what my prayer is that these students experience a spiritual awakening in their lives that's so powerful and so pungent in their lives that they can't help but go share the gospel with people.
Right.
And that's what I'm seeing more than anything. And there's a handful of churches in this town that I'm seeing bought fully into that vision, and
Yeah.
we've been surrounding ourselves together with each other and just saying we're in this together,
Yeah.
because
Love it.
yeah, I'm yapping, but
Yeah.
I there is something happening here, and all of the youth pastors are saying that we're on the tipping point of something
Mm.
that's crazy happening in this town, but I don't know what that is yet. Like we're hosting a worship night this Wednesday at our building that we're expecting 4 churches, almost 300 kids at.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be awesome,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
something where we're just like tired of division and we just
Yeah.
want to be together.
Yeah. You you're still going. If you're still going in ministry in a decade, Des, what's it going to look like?
I think I see myself here. I think I've found my place. I
Mm.
think I've actually found my home, and a decade from now, my prayer is that I'm deeply established and rooted in what's happening in our ministry here. That's my hope. Like
Yeah.
I I'm a person that I think I see vision ahead, and I pray that that's from the Lord, and I trust that that's from the Lord. And I don't see anything outside of City Point right now. I don't see anything outside of being out in this county and serving this county. Like I was actually just meeting with somebody that was like, my dream is to be a lead pastor, and I'm like, cool. That's not my dream. I know where I'm at, and I'm like, I I can't foresee myself doing anything else besides this. This is my 15, 20, 30 till I die year plan,
Love it, Des.
unless either my lead pastor tells me I'm too old for it, or the Lord tells me I'm too old for it, But
Listen, statistically, Des, you shouldn't be in ministry.
yeah.
You think about the rough walk of the first couple years there. And so you've already defied the odds.
Mm.
So who's to say you shouldn't be a youth pastor in 40 years? I know one or two out of the thousands that I've met, they retired as you, maybe you're going to be that guy.
Mm.
You've already defied the odds. Why not?
Right. Yeah.
Thanks for the time, man.
Yeah. Of course,
Appreciate
man.
it. Keep walking.